Hello, everybody. We're back for another Just Look vlog. This is Abundance of Hope. I'm Marissa.
I'm Selena.
I'm Melissa.
And today we are going to be talking about
What are we talking about?
The prison.
school to prison pipeline.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what? Yes, so the old school to prison pipeline.
It really is old as the institution of school and prison.
Very much so, very much prison to pipeline-y. But other than that, it is something that is for sure funneling a ton of Black and brown youth into the prison industrial system, and starting at a very young age, and unfortunately starting even younger, almost as time goes on. Like you start seeing younger and younger kids being funneled into the school to prison pipeline. It's quite disgusting.
I would also say what I've seen over time is a correlation with the privatization of prisons, where there's also been this way bigger push of younger and younger Black kids being criminalized, their behaviors being criminalized, and to put into this pipeline.
Right.
How this relates to homelessness is like almost intuitive, but obviously when you are disrupting a youth's life so young, getting them in touch with systems of criminality and the juvenile system so young, when you are in those systems, it's really hard to get out when you're an adult.
Once
So
the
if you're a
cycle
child,
starts.
that pretty much guarantees you some years of dealing with this system, and then trying to get out of it. You'll be lucky if you do so by the time you're an adult.
Right. And then not only does it make it hard because you're actually experiencing the prison industrial system, but then it makes it hard to get jobs. It makes it hard to get housing. In some cases, it makes it hard to get education, especially if you're an impoverished individual where you're going to be applying for a lot of grants and financial aid.
Yeah.
Having a criminal record, you ain't getting those. Like,
yeah, I mean, honestly, and then when we talk about like holistically, and with some of the programming that we've even done with our family reunification, event, and cohorts, we've seen how anyone in your family engaging with the juvenile or the criminal justice system affects the entire family, affects the entire household, and the effects are rippling. So it's like, yeah, whether it's your child who is in this school to prison pipeline being criminalized in their youth, that's taking you away from your job, right? What happens when adults lose their jobs? The cycles just repeat. And it is institutions that are largely, in part, responsible for the school to prison pipeline.
Absolutely. What say you? Weigh in.
Well, there's been like a saying that goes around. The saying is, I can tell what university or college you're going to go to by what preschool you went to, right? That's the saying. Like if you don't go to a successful preschool, or if you don't go to preschool, you're probably not going to make it in college. And the reason why people say that is because when you are at that age, that's when you get your core learning abilities. You're basically programmed to, I'm going to learn this way. I'm going to be successful this way.
Yeah.
So when the kids aren't in preschool, when they're not in preschool, and they usually go from preschool to kindergarten, then you can pretty much tell if they didn't do preschool, they didn't have that early learning experience, that they're probably going to go, to prison. They're not going to go to college. I think we're at the point where it's so blatantly obvious that we are selling people because prisons are privatized, and that capitalism becomes before anything, right? So you're making all these prisons, and then you have to fill the prisons. So
Or you
what you do
money.
to fill the prisons is you criminalize everything that people are doing, right?
Yep.
So
The new target is homelessness.
we can say that we're not criminals, and we're not like them. They're different from us. But it's like, what if they change the definition of what it means to be a criminal? Then are you going to be a criminal? Or if they say, our law says you can't sit on a couch. Okay, if you sit on a couch, you're a criminal, right? So I think that the issue is we're allowing slavery by another name, because if you look at the definition of slavery and look at the Emancipation, it pretty much said you can't be a slave except if you're in prison.
And that whole 13th Amendment.
Right. So they're basically saying we're going to put you in prison so you can be a slave.
Yes, exactly is what that sentence
And I think
said.
it's extremely dangerous just for society as a whole for us to have a system where our economy depends on people going to jail.
Oh my gosh! Actually, on that note, I think it was Arizona recently. The governor or something was like, "Oh, if we didn't have these prisons, we wouldn't even be able to function as a state."
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that from a different.
Okay,
state.
so y'all are reliant on the prison industrial system. So then, if you know you need it, then you're obviously going to be making more criminals, which is literally what they've done historically
that's what I was gonna
and
say.
presently.
Because you said that homelessness is a new target, I'm actually thinking about how I was hearing. I think you said like over the summer at some point that LA had made a law about like how long you can like either stand in one spot or like sit, like you can't like sit down in certain places anymore. And this is like literally being tired and wanting to sit down outside is something that that doesn't have an income. People get tired no matter your income. When you're outside, sometimes you get tired and you want to sit down. So now because y'all hate homeless people, no one can sit down for a certain amount of time or in certain places.
Well, when they usually make laws like that, they are discretionary with who they apply them to. And they
of course. But I'm just saying this really lends to how easy it is to become a criminal.
Right.
You know?
And the way where it starts in schools, we see, is with mostly that racist mindset and the bias that is created, or not created, but that is perpetrated by the
adultification
teachers.
Of black children.
Yep, and they're gonna give more harsh punishments to these kids, have them suspended, which disrupts their learning, or expelled, which disrupts their learning. And for a household, if you're already burdened, impoverished, where you gotta work, and then now your kid can't be in school, so then how do you work? And so
then don't let the school find out you're leaving that kid at home.
I was about to say, or you do work instead of being home with your kid. And then there's a whole other thing, and then truancies can get your kid into the juvenile. Like there's
truancies can get the adult. If your kid is
both.
truant enough, you can get in trouble.
Literally both. And so it's just like, again. We find the institutions are these driving forces of what we're seeing in society that we're also trying to combat. And so we have to hold systems and institutions accountable. And I think that it's really good now. Like we're starting to see grants that are necessarily or that are really focused and specific to disrupting the school to prison pipeline. But then it's for me, you can just spend less money by not being racist and funneling these kids into the school and prison pipeline.
So, because of the fact that they're saying, they're basing their economy on criminals, like essentially when you say you're basing your economy on criminals, you're saying you need criminals, right?
Yeah, and then what do? If there's a demand, you're gonna supply it,
right?
So
my question is for you, Marissa. Since everything in America is about capitalism and about money, what do you think some of the pushback would be from people trying to disrupt the
huge pushbacks. Like, I think on, like, more, not necessarily with answering your question, but more so of the solutions, I would say we need to get out of the market of privatized prisons. And then actually abolish. Like, come on now. I'm not here to play coy. Like, that's the game that I'm about. We need to abolish all this shit. Excuse my language. We need to abolish all of this stuff because it's not working for majority of society. Like we're like snowballing fast and quick to literally economic ruin and societal ruin and the apocalypse.
So another question that I have, and either one of you guys can answer it. So Washington doesn't allow private prisons, but we still
there's still
problem,
so
right?
many
so
different.
What's going on?
There's still so many different. I'm gonna answer your question, but there's still so many different places that not only still allow private prisons, but are actively keeping them a thing and pushing for them to continuously have more resources and the more power to incriminate more people. So I would just say, in a state like Washington, where we don't allow privatized prisons, there's still very much a lot of
allowed to be here.
Right. Of a lot of corporations that utilize private prison labor that are allowed to be here. And then also, not only that, racism is allowed to function in full swing in every single state in the United States. And that is honestly the biggest tool that capitalism uses is racism. And the biggest tool that like in all of these institutions, racism is the big driving force, like with the amount of black and brown people that are in these prisons. You really only need to see that to really see what's really driving these prisons. They're criminalizing being black and brown, basically, with every single thing that you do. Every law that's being passed is at the discretion of who?
And
racist police officers, racist DAs, racist attorney generals, who are going to be prosecuting them, who are not going to be giving them the diversion programs that there are.
Right, but there's also every law that's made that makes it harder for black and brown people to get jobs, makes it harder for black and brown kids to go to school because their clothing or their hair, right, doesn't fit the standard, or it's harder for them to get housing. These are laws that are being put in place that are leading these people to criminalization. Like, literally, if I can't get a job because the hair that grows out of my head, you're not leaving people a lot of options. That's all I'm saying.
So what do you think? So, because there's only 13% of black people in America. So 13% of America is black. You can only imprison so many people. Who's next after they imprison all the black people?
Well, actually, who's with them? The indigenous people.
Right, exactly.
The brown people.
Yeah. Well, there's not a ton of indigenous people in number, but if you look at how they're representing prison, it's still disproportionate. Right. Just like the same amount the black population.
Black and brown people who try
13% of the population here, but look how overrepresented we are in the prison industrial system. So and they'll always, I'm going to answer your question because they'll always make more. They'll always make more criminals. Just like black people have been heavily criminalized. Then brown people are being heavily criminalized. Poor people are being heavily criminalized. Homeless people are being heavily criminalized. If you not rich, if you're not white, if you're not cis, if you're not hetero, if you're not able, you're going to become a target. And then even then, just mark off one of those things, you're going to become a target until there ain't no more targets. And again, snowballing fast and hard towards ruin. So you know what I mean?
Why do you think us as a collective society allows? Because I think that we can say that people don't know, but I feel like if you are a well-functioning adult in America, you know that the prisons.
But
we have to think of how anything has come into place. How did black people become to where we are such a target? Right. It's first that re-educationing and that controlling how you see these people. And I've honestly already started to see it in homelessness. Yeah. We've started to see, like, with the bathrooms. You can barely go to a bathroom anywhere, or there's locks. You gotta buy something. The loitering laws. Now they've allowed homelessness to get to such a point that now your regular citizens, they don't care where the homeless. A lot of people, if you look on these comment sections of anything about homelessness, there's like, we just want them out of the way. Put the criminals in jail. Is every homeless person a criminal? No, but they're criminalizing homelessness to such a degree that now they're just like they see black, they see criminal, they see homeless, they see criminal.
And drug addict.
Exactly. They are criminal, drug addict. Like it's, so it's changing how you're seeing people. And we all remember that documentary that came out a few years ago. Who did they have representing the homeless population? Able-bodied, cis-het white males that are capable and that you would perceive themselves as choosing their situation. They're choosing to be like, did you see the documentary?
Oh, I did.
Okay, so this is the face of homelessness. But who's really the face of homelessness?
Affected
who's really actually more out there than able-bodied white men that are choosing to be out there because they just don't want to do, like, you know what I mean? Right. That's not who's really out there, but that's who they're making the face of the movement.
Control the narrative.
And exactly, controlling the narrative, controlling how you're seeing these people. And then people don't care what's happening. Exactly. Because then they're just criminals and we just need to lock up all the criminals.
Well, I think it can't be lost on the fact that most homeless people, if you want to look at stealing as a crime, then yes, they are stealing because they're hungry and they need to,
Well, those are survival crimes.
And there's a difference
they
between
need to have their
crime.
basic needs met. But if you actually look at the records that people that are homeless are experiencing, it's because they're getting criminalized because they're stealing, right? So they're stealing food. Right.
Like,
why do we have
diapers?
Why do we have laws that allow people to be criminalized for stealing food when you need food to stay alive?
Well, think about the school to prison pipeline. Being in school while we were actively homeless, we were always late. We were absent a lot. We were tired because we didn't really get a good night's sleep. And then what is that transferring to the teacher? Oh, you're lazy. Oh, you're not prepared. Oh, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And then you start getting sent out of class.
Or you're talking.
Right.
I was like, I'm one of the quietest. I was about to say bitches up in here, but I'm one of the quietest kids in this class, and so it was always so funny that my teacher would be like, "Oh, sit right next to me,
right?
And do
so,
your
yeah.
work." I'm like, "Ma'am, I don't know how to do the work. That's why I'm not doing it."
Once that narrative has been made,
yeah,
then everything can make you a target. Like when you're in school and you're a poor kid and you're just trying to make it because you're going through with your family, and then the teacher's seeing you as this and that, and they're gonna send you to the principal's office, and the next thing you know, you got this suspension, and the next thing you know, that you got this expulsion, and whole time what you needed.
And now you ain't graduating on time, right?
And then if you don't graduate, you don't got skills, and then what? You can't get a job, and then what are you gonna do? You're gonna do those survival crimes, or even as a youth, being in that where you're hungry and you need to eat, so you're stealing, or you know what I mean. And then there's the youth that's in that situation getting criminalized.
I mean, I remember being at school and like not being able to concentrate or do my work because I was so hungry.
So hungry, yes.
Yeah,
so, we've all been there.
Yeah, so it's a whole. I feel like we're making children live and deal with adult issues that they just shouldn't have to be dealing with. Like,
yep, and then imagine if you're a
sense.
teacher who is biased and you've been told about this little black kid that they're unruly and they just don't want to work and they're lazy and they're this and that, and then you see this little kid who's paying attention and is tired and falling asleep, and then as a teacher, because you don't know the context and you kind of don't care because the narrative has already been put to where now you desensitized to
and
it.
You're not seeing this
you're
as
just
a
like
child
exactly
who
you're
needs
seeing
help.
this as a lazy person, someone who's disruptive and doesn't care,
and who's adultified in your mind.
exactly. You're not actually trying to get this kid resources. You go try to get this kid up out of your classroom.
Yep.
Right. So I heard a story on the news that like a country, I think it might have been Italy, made it where people that get, like, if you get caught stealing food, that's not a crime.
Yeah.
So do you think that like in America that will be something that like inspires American people to kind of look at people for humans and not just their worth as what money you can make off of them, but their actual worth as humans?
I actually like that, and I feel like that really goes in by the way of a solution. And I don't know if I said that right, but I was thinking of everything that we're talking about when we mentioned the school to prison pipeline is a lot of built-in institution-based risk factors. And I'm like, there aren't a lot of protective factors. A school might have a pantry where you can get some snacks, but that school usually, if they have that, they're not going to have a substantial meal up in there, right? They're going to have some ramen noodles is usually going to be the most substantial meal. So I'm thinking, how do we as an institution and how do we as a community, how do we put in more protective factors for our youth so that we can combat all these risk factors that they're facing? And I think that's going to be heavily tied to the solutions around combating the school to prison pipeline, you know, outside of just abolishing.
Yeah, because I'm like, if we're not going to abolish, then what we can do is we can provide more resources.
By way of abolishment that isn't just burning it all down and starting over, we can put these protective factors in that is going to be switching up our society, switching up the way we see people. And I think institutions really do have a big part in that. The narratives around things are extremely important.
Absolutely.
So in Washington, we have really big, really successful companies like T-Mobile, Kirkland, what is the other?
Amazon, Boeing.
Yeah, Boeing.
Google.
I Starbucks. I'm just saying that
Microsoft.
That originated in Washington. So don't you think it would be, like, for my ideal, I think that these corporations, it's their responsibility as humans, as to, you know, being a decent person, is to like sponsor a school and provide a school pantry for that school where the kids can just come and get food from it.
That would be
I
really
think
cool.
that would be awesome. You know, honestly, I think one of the things that we have in the community is we really don't, and this is kind of part of the conditioning, we really don't put enough pressure on these large corporations to actually be good forces in the community and the resources that they should be. Well, because, and it's definitely conditioning, because in everything is blame the poor person.
Oh yeah, and it is not our responsibility.
Or, you know, or you didn't pull yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever. But
because your ancestors stole my boots.
Okay.
No, they did. Like,
I mean, yes, but still, like, for us, I feel like as a community, we really do need to be holding these corporations, these large institutions accountable for the safeguards that they're putting. Because why are there not more resources for youth and for their families? Like, we got large corporations in here that are making the cost of living skyrocket. We won't say no names. And making housing, even more scarce than it already was. So what are you guys doing to protect the communities that you're coming into for sustainability?
Yeah, and that
like,
wouldn't really
honestly,
cost them that much. Like, that wouldn't cost them that much money to, like, okay, well, I'm in that's St. Garfield High School. We're gonna
or
take
Rainier
Garfield
Beach,
High School, or Rainier Beach, and we're gonna stock it with food for the people that need food.
That's that
like,
community
how's that gonna hurt you?
investment.
Like, how is that hurting you? Like, how is that? It's not. There's no like downside for them. So it to me, it's just very strange because they can get a tax write-off. So it's like, why are people deliberately not trying to help people?
Yeah, but I feel like other ways that we can stop the school to prison pipeline without even necessarily relying on institutions, because we obviously have to do that, but also as a community, we can just show up more individually for the community. When we know that there are households that are struggling, let's show up for those households that are struggling.
Maybe
when we know that there
sponsor
are
a school and drop off like food to the school, like sponsor and just like do a pantry and a refrigerator.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's a really great idea. We could
that would
definitely talk more about
coincide with the resource, of the fact that we are gonna have a whole free little shop at the resource center where people can come. Like, these are real everyday protective factors. When we have more of the community getting involved and doing literally what they can do, like, that's honestly, Abundance of Hope Center in 2022 looks so different than Abundance Hope Center in 2027 because we started and we just did what we could do.
2027. Show the time.
I do.
She said 2027, but I heard 2017.
Yeah, 2017 was what I mean. But even going forward to 2027, the organization is going to look so different because we're always going to do what we can for the community. We started this organization on working on one bed in a studio apartment, trying to figure out what we could do for our community because we saw what was happening in Seattle in 2017 and said, things are bad. Like, it's time. If ever we were going to think that we could do something and be a positive example or impact on our community, now's the time to do it. And I can say from example, we have been able to do that. If people say I have the power to make a change, and it sounds so corny to say that, but if you just decide that you can make some stuff happen, you gonna make it happen. And that's literally what our people do. That's what we know to do. And so when it comes to disrupting the school to prison pipeline, I don't think we can do it. I know we can do it. You know what I mean? Because that's what we do, is handle stuff. And did we create the school to prison pipeline? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the people who did create it benefit heavily from it destroying our communities. And so again, this is a place where we're saying enough. And this is a place where we're saying we're going to step up and become a protective factor for our youth and encourage everyone else to do the same.
Yes, because ultimately the same thing that's going to combat the school to prison pipeline is the same thing that will combat a lot of stuff, and that's resources and re-education and a whole culture shift.
Yeah.
Accountability. Like, I feel like a lot of what's going on in our society, it's based off of these huge greedy corporations that all the money in the world isn't enough for them.
Yeah.
It's just very strange.
Yeah, it's all about the profits.
Talking to you, Nestle. But so we definitely have what we need as communities to protect and provide for ourselves. It's all about tapping in and believing in our collective power. So that's my last note on it.
Yes, I would say to the viewers, what do you feel like is really funneling the school to prison pipeline? And what do you feel like we could do as an organization, or what we can do as a community that can really combat this and stop having more and more Black and brown children? Did y'all know there are more Black and brown children in jail in King County than outside of jail? Like, it's crazy. So we need to have not more kids in jail than they are outside. So what can we do? What can we do as a community? What can we do as an institution to disrupt the school to prison pipeline? And
And to
like and
pressure
subscribe.
gatekeepers. Yes,
So
absolutely.
super quickly, if you guys feel like that's a good idea, where we can Abundance of Hope can go inside a certain school in a low income area and provide like a refrigerator or a cabinet where they can just get food when they need it. You guys think that's a good idea? If do, comment and donate for it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and let us know what school we should have it at. We talking Rainier Beach, Garfield, Cleveland, Franklin, that kind of thing. All right,
Yes.
let us know.
Bye, y'all.